Hello, my name is Katya. This is my channel. This is the first video I am attempting, and we'll see how it goes. It is the 13th of July right now, which holds significance for me because it is the feast day of Saint Alexander of Munich, and he was a big part of me becoming Orthodox. And this video is a little bit of my story of how I became Orthodox, and I've written about it online before. I've written about it at length privately, but I know that putting it in a video ends up being a little bit of a different experience. So if you are interested, just hang on and I will start talking. I grew up non-denominationally Protestant in Chicago in the 1980s. My family didn't go to church though. We were kind of people where God was obviously there. It was a given, like the air and light and everything, but my parents didn't take us to church regularly. When we got old enough for school, we went to a non-denominationally Protestant school, and that is where my sister and I, received most of our instruction about religious things. And for the most part, I think it was pretty good. We were expected to memorize things and learn things out of the Bible and actually think about them the whole way up from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. When I entered high school, my parents were going through a divorce, which was horrible and nasty and affected my entire high school career. Both of my parents started going to church more regularly, but I didn't, and for a while I was really under the impression that I could be a Christian and not have a church, and that is a really, really difficult thing to do. I'd say almost impossible. Very, very difficult in any case. And so by the time I was a senior in high school, I was really kind of longing for a church community. I had a good friend of mine who was the son of missionaries to the U.S., and he really inspired me that I needed this in my life because I saw how it helped make him more of an amazing person. In any case, I went to college, and surprisingly, the culture up there was very, very Catholic. And for the first time in my life, I had Catholic friends who talked about being Catholic. They certainly were in my high school, and it seemed strange, to see people crossing themselves before tests and everything. But we didn't talk about it because at that time and place, it was a public high school in Chicago in the 90s. Everybody just kind of did their own thing, and if you want to do something else, that was fine. And it was a wonderful place, but I really didn't learn very much kind of outside of my comfort zone as far as religion went. So going to college, being around all these people who were identifiably Roman Catholic and who were willing to talk about it and bring me along to church, to Mass, that was nice. But on the other hand, I didn't think I could ever become Roman Catholic. I think the only time where it even seemed like it was a possibility was visiting a church with a Latin Mass, which seemed very odd. Not the Mass itself, but that it just felt more reverent, and it was, I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I do remember that. So I did a study abroad trip in Germany, and this was my last semester of college. One of the trips that we made in Germany, like many study abroad trips do, was visiting Dachau. And at Dachau, there's a little memorial chapel that the Russian Orthodox have erected there. And I saw it, and I was kind of moved by it. It's hard to explain. Yes, of course, there were there were a good number of Jews at Dachau as well, but Dachau was more a place of political prisoners. There were a lot of Catholic priests there. There were a good number of Orthodox, a lot of Russians at the end, and it was something moving, and it was also something that was a reminder of it was pretty much anybody who spoke up, who was persecuted by the Nazis. And if we make it just a racial thing, I think we lose a lot of the lessons that ought to be learned from this. So I had this little seed of an idea that maybe I should check out an Orthodox church when I got back to America. And a Russian church seemed to be more in line with what I would feel comfortable in. I had taken a couple of years of Russian in college because I'm a language geek. And got back to Chicago. I was working, I was living with my mom, and I was looking at a book of Chicago close to the turn of the century. I think most of the pictures there ended up being between 1900 and 1910. And I saw this beautiful church, Holy Trinity, which was erected in part with help from Tsar Nicholas II. And I thought, hey, that would be awesome, would have been awesome if it's still standing, because I knew the neighborhood where it was in, because I had lived near it, I had babysat near it, and I had never noticed it. And one night I was looking at the address of the church and noticed that it was on the other side of this one major street. And back then, it's Division Street. Back then, Division Street was a very, very dangerous street. You didn't hang out on it. There weren't all the restaurants. There wasn't the nightlife. And I had spent a lot of time north of Division in the neighborhood, but I'd never spent any time south of Division, more on the Ukrainian village side of it. And when I realized that the church was south of Division Street, I had to take a look in the phone book. And it was interesting because according to the phone book, the church was still there. I didn't know how all these things worked. Didn't know that a lot of times the phone numbers for the church are connected to a priest's or cell phone, even if they're a landline, that they kind of route further. But in any case, I didn't call at midnight or 1 a.m., whenever it was that I made this epiphany. But in the spring of 2001, I wandered into Holy Trinity one Sunday, and within 30 seconds, I really felt like I had come home, and this is the place that I needed to be, and this is the place that was home. And it wasn't a matter of finding a church anymore. It was just working at officially becoming Orthodox. And that's a very, very strange thing to feel. But at the time, Peter Jeremihoff was the choir director there, and once he walked in, it sounded like the angels singing. It sounded like you just walked into a different dimension, angelic, all that. In any case, I spent that summer of 2001 getting to know more about Orthodoxy, and some of it came from online, but a lot of it was by attending services. There was a deacon and his wife who were there for the summer. They, the husband was a seminary student at St. Vladimir's, and he hadn't been ordained yet. And things were going pretty well. And then September 11th came around, and I came to the conclusion that I needed to go abroad, that this is what I was being called to do. And I had a friend who said if I wanted to come to Germany, I could. He'd help me. I was looking to join the Foreign Service, and I figured some overseas experience would help. And I didn't have anything tying me down. I was 22 by that time. And so in February of 2002, I got on a plane and with the aim of moving to Germany. And it was a tough slog. After a couple months, I got hired at a U.S. military base, and I started making contact with the church in Munich, Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. Started attending there, and I met up with the priest sometime fairly early on, saying I wanted to be baptized. And the meeting went well, but I lived an hour or so away, so it wasn't like I got a lot of extra attention, and there was the language barrier and so on. But I got a call in September, and the priest said, I'm doing a baptism this weekend. There's a woman and her daughter. Do you want to be baptized as well? And I said, yes. And that's what happened. Except it was just me, because the lady and her daughter decided not to do it then. It's a little bit unusual, and it's coming on 20 years of being officially Orthodox. There have been a lot of very, very good things, a lot of things that haven't been so great, but I wouldn't know where else to go at this point. I know a lot about different denominations and things like this, and still feel like Orthodoxy has the fullness of what the church is supposed to be. Not that it's, perfect, and we've seen a lot of its failures recently, especially when it came to the response to COVID. But I think, like all of us, the church is not perfect, but it's constantly being perfected by God, because that is an important part of the Christian life, is just submitting to trial and bearing it and learning it and letting the good come out of it. There's certainly more, but as far as an overview of how I got to become Orthodox. It's a little bit of a story. I hope things are well with all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.